Hi everybody, just getting set up here now for our weekly tutorial. Getting a little more into our watercolors hopefully. We've done a couple different things the last few weeks. So this week I want to do a leaf in more detail. I've done like little small leaves before and things like that, but this we're gonna focus on one maple leaf. Now, first of all, I'll go over, I'm using 9x12 watercolor paper, Canson watercolor paper. You can get it a bunch of different places, Amazon, Curry's art store online. I find it at Walmart now. They've recently started carrying it. And I do have a little pencil outline of my leaf, which I'll go ahead and put a photo of that on our news feed on my Patreon so that you can have a look at that. If you didn't see it on the news feed, you can stop the video now and just see the outline. So that's that. Now for paint today, I'm going to be using this palette by Prima Watercolors. It's called Decadent Pies. So each color I've swatched out. It comes with this little card and an empty space, and you can put a little swatch of color with each corresponding name. And that way you always know what color is where and what you're going for. So I want to kind of do this maple leaf in sort of muted neutrals. It's not going to be bright red and bright green. So I'm going to use a combination of this palette today. I may not do much of the blue, but we'll do our yellows and browns, etc. And I got a little kind of a olivey green. That one's called Key Lime. So that's the paint I'll be using for today's video. The Prima watercolor palettes, I get them on Amazon. They're about $30 for this set. And I have others that I've had for, you know, a long while and used a lot. And they really last forever. Like there's this little square of paint. I mean, you use very, very little. You wet it and it gets activated that way. It's not like the tubes of watercolor that are already wet. These are dry and you just wet your brush, and I love them. They're really great. So if you're interested in getting into watercolor a little more, these are a great investment. They're not really that expensive. For brushes, again, a Walmart find for me. Today I'm going to be using a 1/2-inch angle brush. These all came in a pack with a whole bunch of different ones, but we only need 2. Simple Simmons angle brush, has the white handle, and then I'm going to use a number 5 round of the same brand. So that's all you need for today. Alrighty. So what I'm gonna do, I have a jar of water here. I'm gonna wet my brush, and I usually like to start at the top of the leaf and work my way down. So I'm gonna start by wetting my brush, and I'm gonna go to probably my darkest kind of brownish red color. So it's right down here in the bottom corner. It's called Peach. And you can use the side for your mixing palette. And I'm gonna just start with sort of the top edge of my leaf, using the edge of my brush to kind of give it an imperfect edge. And then I'm gonna go for, let's see here, probably a little bit of this sort of light yellowy. So I'm imagining kind of a dried up, crunchy fall leaf. Let's try a little of the green. So I want to keep dipping my brush in a little water and come back to my painting. You kind of need to work a little fast when you're doing this with like several colors, because you don't want your edge to dry too much. You want them to kind of blend together. And I'll probably go back over this several times. Just to kind of deepen the color. And you'll notice I'm not brushing it out. I want like all these little kind of imperfections to stay there because it helps create texture on your leaf. Now I'm gonna do a little experiment. Let's take a little of that really, this is almost like a navy blue color. It's called Blackberry. And let's take a little of this sort of orangey rust color. Mix a little of that together. That gives us kind of a really deep brown. Oh yeah, look at the edge on that. So one of the main things to not kind of forget is you can mix your watercolor paint. You don't have to use it just because you have a little square and it's that rust color. That doesn't mean that's the only color you can let it be. You can take some green and a little bit of that and kind of mix them together. The angle brush is great for getting your edge on your leaf. When you're doing something like this too, try not to like overthink it. The imperfections are what makes this kind of look good. Makes it look like a real leaf. And it'll take a little time to get the hang of it, of course. So this is a little bit more of that, almost that bluey dark color. And anytime you make a mark and there's a little line like that, you can just put a little water on your brush, go back to it, and help it kind of blend out a little bit. And if you have a maple leaf tree near you, why not go and look for a leaf? There'll soon be falling leaves, of course, but get a leaf. And bring it inside and have a look at it and just see like what the imperfections are like and how the textures, I mean, it's not something we look at often, but if you really look at one up close, you'll see. So once I kind of have it all done once, I'll kind of go back over it then and just deepen my colors, add a little more texture. And if you don't have the Prima palette, of course, you can use any combination as long as you have like a yellow, brownish color, kind of a green, maybe a little bit of reddish brown. The sky is really the limit when it comes to what you can do with a fall leaf changing colors. You'll want mostly browns and reds and greens, but you can add like I did with a little bit of that blue. If you've got if you have like a Payne's gray color, if you have the color in the tubes, Payne's gray is kind of like a navy. That really kind of complements the look. I'm really darkening this now. I want it to be. I'm going to switch now to my round number 5 to just kind of help a little more with the detail work, a little smaller brush. I've done maple leaves before and made them really, really bright red and green, which I like, but I kind of like doing one like this a little more dark and sort of neutral palette. Just remember, don't overwork it. Leave some little spots of color, because as it dries, it kind of creates its own little pattern, and that's what will give your leaf texture. So you'll notice I've done very little brushing. It's more about layering the paint on and kind of leaving it and letting it do its own thing. Taking a little bit of just dark brown now. With my number 5 brush. So for me, like I'm keeping it more dark around the edges. And I'm always turning my paper. And you'll notice when you look at fall leaves, no leaf is the same. They're all different. Some may be really dry and start getting cracks and holes in them. Different colors. So what I'm gonna do next is the stem. So I'm gonna still use my number 5 brush. Actually, I wanna just add a little more here. There we go. So first thing I'll do for the stem, I'm probably just gonna use my kind of olive green color first. That green is called Key Lime on this palette. I love the palettes because they come up with such neat names for their paint colors. And I'll just make kind of a curved, like that. Usually it's a little wider on the bottom. And then I'll just take a little dark on my brush and just sort of darken it down one side. And I'm gonna take a little bit of my brown color too. This is kind of a reddish brown color. This one's called Peach. I'm going to next do a little kind of flick of water. So I'm just rinsing my brush and I'm leaving water in my brush. And I'm just gonna flick a little water on my leaf, just like that. So you just hold it above and you just kind of flick. And I don't know if you can see what it does, but it kind of creates these, see these light spots that I've just created with that flick of water. So if you do the flick, you're gonna want to do it before everything is kind of bone dry. So see how it makes that real neat pattern. Now, if you end up like me getting kind of a puddle of water, I've got like a little puddle happening, I'll just take a little piece of paper towel and just touch it on any parts that has a puddle of water. Turn my painting. So I'm getting a little oopsie there. I don't know if you can see that, which that's fine. I mean, that happens. So not to worry, not to stress. We'll just take a little, let's make sure there's no puddle of water. I'll take a little piece of paper towel. I got a little bit of the dark paint on my brush. I'm just going to bring that up just a hint, just to cover in that little boo-boo. But that flicking of water creates such a cool effect on the leaf and kind of adds to your texture, adds to you know, the look of it being kind of old and dried up and stuff. So next thing I'm gonna do is a little shadow. I'm going to take my, normally you can do this like with black or Payne's gray, but I'm trying to stick to using only what's in my palette today. So I'm gonna take a little bit of my blackberry, which is a really, really dark blue, and a little bit of my brown, just to kind of tone it down a little bit. And then I really, really dilute it. So I want like hardly any pigment on my brush. I just want it to look like kind of dark water. Because we don't want our shadow to be dark, dark, dark. We want it to be kind of sheer and just kind of there a little bit. So I'm just gonna come outside and remember your shadow will only be on one side, so the inside curve of everything here. So see how faint and light that is. And that creates just a really, really slight shadow. And we'll go down the side of the stem. I'm pulling a little color from my leaf, which is fine. That happens. I didn't let it dry enough, but for you, you can let yours kind of dry a little more than I did. And we want this to dry a little more. I'm just fanning it a little bit. I just want to do the veining up through the middle of the leaf. That's the last step. But I love the look of this leaf. I like the dark kind of neutral colors. But again, if you wanted to do this in bright colors too, it would look so pretty. So whatever you have, it's more about the look, the shape, the technique than it is with the color. Like, I mean, to me, like you could do this leaf in pinks and purples and yellows and it would still look awesome because use the same technique and you'll get the same effects, but it'll be just in a different color palette. I'm just going around and kind of neatening up a little bit here. But yeah, I mean, don't let it stop you if you don't have the Prima, or, you know, go ahead and order a Prima palette from Amazon. It'll last you forever. They're neat, they're compact. I love them. I absolutely love them. But yeah, don't let it stop you if you don't have the same colors as I do. Just go ahead and use whatever you have. You'll still get a beautiful leaf. And who says a leaf has to be in natural colors? It doesn't. So now for the veining, all I'm going to use again is just a little bit of dark, like whatever you got left on your palette, a little bit darker than what we've been using. So I just have this little bit of blue and greeny, or sorry, blue and brown mixed together. I'm just going to try a little bit and just see if it's ready, because it'll probably, if your leaf is not dry, when you put your line, it's just going to bleed. So it's important, and I'm doing this kind of fast, but it's important for you to have sort of a dry painting before you start this. So for the veining, you want it to be very faint. It doesn't have to be a big black line. Just a hint of a line will do it. I generally put one line from the start of the kind of stem to the point. So one will go up there, one will go to this point, and one will go to that point. And then off those, you can have just a few little hints. There's really no right or wrong. And if your lines are a little kind of wiggly, that looks good, leave it, because this is kind of a dried up leaf. It's fall, they're falling off the trees. And there you go, that's your veining in your leaf. So we've done several layers. We took our brush with clean water, we flicked it on our painting, then we waited for it to dry. We did our veining, we did our little tiny bit of a shadow just on one side, you can see. And that is your maple leaf painting. There you go, guys. Let me know how you make out. Thanks, see you next time.